Okay, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to the 7th Cinema and Philosophy Symposium, which is being held for the seventh time in Ankara. And in this session, we will be talking about cinema and ontological narratives, space, nature, and existence, and I will be the moderator. I have speakers, Azranur, Elif, Sucuoğlu. She will make a presentation on the Enchanted agency of nature in Frozen and Frozen 2 films. Hilal, Erkuş, and Kübra Görgülü shared the abstract, which is named The Impact of the Film's Use of Space on the Atmosphere of the Cinema. Gesufrancesco Petrillo is presenting The Steel Island as other space, Foucault's Heterotopia in Rose Island. And Ersin Berk, finally, will present his abstract, which is named Philosophic and Photographic casts in the film, The Turin Horse by Bela Tarr. I would kindly request you to be in the limits of 15 minutes, please. And afterwards we can take question and answers. We can save some time for the question and answer part. So shall we start with you? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining this session. In the Frozen movies, we have seen nature isn't just a backdrop. It's a living, dynamic force that plays a big part in characters' growth and oral history. These films draws upon ideas from romanticism, existentialism, posthumanism, and eco-criticism to show nature as an active participant, not just as scenery. Think of nature as a play in as a characters in those films. As you know that Elsa has magical powers, she can create ice and kind of whole snowstorms and etc. And her ice powers are more than just magic, it's the reflection of emotions from fear to joy. There is a whole spectrum in it. And ice as a vibrant form of agency in the movies. According to Jane Bennett, the concept of think power, it helps us to understand Elsa's powers. It's not more than a tool. They have their own influence and effects beyond her control. So she writes, things have a kind of vitality and a capacity to produce effects independently of human will. So in the following scenes, in the first movie, we have seen that when she feels anxious, she creates this snowstorm and it's kind of going to chaotic atmosphere. We have companion species theory by Donna Haraway, and Elsa creates Olaf and Marshmallow, and Marshmallow represents her anxious and dark side, and Olaf is kind of resemblance of the joyous parts of her life with her sister Anna. In the companion species, Haraway notes that companion species are partners who shape each other in the dance of becoming. So they coexist in this environment. Olaf embodies Elsa's childhood joy and innocence and reminder of happier times with Anna, and Marshmallow is the guard who creates the distinction between the people, environment, and herself. So she creates kind of isolation with this creation of Marshmallow, and these creations influence Elsa's journey, acting as companions that reflect her inner state. So we can approach this kind of spectrum through the eco-emotional perspective. And we have Let It Go song, as you all know. He finally stops hiding her powers with the song, and it's all about freedom, self-exploration, acceptance, and embracing her who she is. And the lyrics, I'm never going back, the past is in the past, show Elsa's rejection of societal expectations, aligning with Jean-Jacques Rousseau's concept of authenticity, which emphasizes returning to one's natural self, free from societal constraints. Nature mirrors Elsa's emotional ups and downs, showing how connected she is to her surroundings. In the second movie, we have Enchanted Forest, that living mystical place full of powerful forces. The spirits of air, fire, water, and earth aren't just part of setting, they drive the story and impact the characters. Actually, they have names like Gale, Bruni, Nock, and Earth Giants. As described in the movie, far away as north as we go stood a very old and very enchanted forest, but its magic wasn't that of goblin spells and lost fairies. It was protected by the most powerful spirits of all, those of air, fire, earth, and water. Timothy Morton's idea of dark ecology emphasizes the ecological awareness must include complexity, negativity, and even ugliness. The Enchanted Forest reflects this idea because it's not idyllic paradise. It's full of terror, tension, and conflict. And Northuldra people live in harmony with these spirits, showing a relationship with nature that's based on respect and balance. We have another space, Ahtahollen, which is the river of memory, and glaciers are the ice rivers as quoted by Elsa in the movie. It's not just a location, it's a liminal space between Northuldra and Arendelle, and it's like a living archive holding memories and truths. Throughout the second movie, Olaf all the time talks about fun facts and kind of disturbs all the companions of him and says, water has memory. The water that makes us has passed through at least 4 humans and or animals throughout the lifetime and remembers everything. So we have this motif throughout the movie, and in the end, we have this climactic point that the Ahtahollen comes up. So Elsa's journey to Ahtahollen is one of self-discovery where she learns more about herself through her connection with nature. Ahtahollen creates a scenery that all the things happened in the past and the truth shows up. Sorry. As Maurice Merleau-Ponty's idea, the flesh of the world, he quoted that the world is made of the same flesh as our body. So we have seen that our flesh and the Ahtahollen's flesh are the same, and it creates the scenery with a magical anthropomorphic way. But the sense of it creates that memory is not solely human, but it is embedded in the environment. So we live in an embedded space in the whole world, so we cannot discriminate one to another. As to conclude, the destruction of the dam in the Frozen 2 shows us the powerful metaphor for ecological justice. It's about righting past wrongs and restoring balance, because the nature gets its revenge throughout the whole events. Well, Planet criticized the idea of human supremacy, where humans see themselves as above nature, which Arendelle people did before. Frozen 2 challenges these consequences of exploitation with this way, and the spirits act to correct these wrongs, and showing nature has its own kind of moral agency. So we can see it as a call to decolonize how we view nature, and seeing it not as a resource to control, but as something we must coexist with it. Thank you all for listening. If you have any question, I will gladly answer in the Q&A session.
Perfect timing. Thank you. You saved us very minutes, too many minutes. Okay, for the second presentation, since you are sharing the abstract, but Hilal Erkuş, Professor Erkuş will submit. And also, we will take some contribution from Kübra Görgülü, I believe. Hocam isterseniz böyle de gelebilir Kübra, eğer birlikte sunmak isterseniz. Tamam. Okay.
Hello everyone. I'm Professor Hilal Erkuş from Akdeniz University. We are from Faculty of Architecture and Department of Urban and Regional Planning, and we are focusing on space theories and explaining how urban space has changed for many years. But together with Kübra, my master student, we published a master thesis. This is an outcome of that published master thesis, which focuses on cinema and space interconnection. So I'll be talking on the effect of the use of space in cinema. Can you hear me? On the atmosphere of the film, and we will make a comparison through movies about the city. So, about the content, I will be talking on the aim. Can you hear? And I will be talking of the use of space in cinema, and place, meaning, and the use of space in Turkish cinema. And I will be talking on the method and methodology and the material, how we will be applying the techniques to the films. And we will be talking about the results and discussion on the selected 3 movies, Abluka, Kaygı, and Son Çıkış. And we will be talking on the conclusions. So to start with, the aim of the study is to evaluate the impact on the atmosphere of the film when analyze the impact of space on the atmosphere of the film when analyzed through the Lefebvre's conceptualization on the perceived, conceived, and lived space. In order to make sense of the space in terms of how space is produced in films about the city. So the reason why we made this research and how it differs from many studies is the study does not only characterize and read the space used in the film as a space representation designed space. This study analyzed the character's experience with space in the film, and it identifies space of representation, lived space in itself. And this study adds spatial practices and spatial representation to the city, to the analysis. And it evaluates the effects of this space production on the general atmosphere of the movie. So to look at the literature, the role of space in cinema. Space is defined as the place where the cinematic action takes place, and it provides a dimension for the interpretation of the story. And in this way, space gives meaning to the movie. Bordwell and Thompson suggested that in the analysis of the space in cinema, the space in the story should be analyzed as plot space, where the story takes place, and space within the frame, mise en scene. According to the Pösteki, the representation of space in the movie depends on 3 basic factors: the character's own experience of space, the ability of the director and creative team to organize the relationship between mise en scenes in a way that contributes to the atmosphere of the film, and the relationship established between the mise-en-scenes to the sense of the viewers. So, although the use of space in the cinema was initially only for decor purposes, it was later transformed into consciously produced spaces, both reflecting on the atmosphere of the movie and helping to transfer that atmosphere of the viewer. This is why the analysis of the spatial experiences of the characters in the film and the evolution of the contribution of the selected mise-en-scenes to the atmosphere at this point is important in order to show the points that the viewer may miss with his or her emotional state and perception of space in making sense of the film and offer the perspective of the film. So, to look at that, we see in the Lefebvre's practice of spatial triad, we see his definition on perceived space, conceived space, and lived space. These are the representations of some pictures from the cities, perceived space, conceived, and lived space. To define all these categories, perceived space as a concrete example, the present day is defined as the daily life of someone living in a public housing in modern times. Like Perceived spaces are related to the space as a material reality, since they include buildings, structures, workspaces, private space, roads, networks connecting to leisure areas. But conceived space is a little different from that. Conceived space is something that's planned and designed. So it's these are the space of planners, urbanists, and all artists and designers. The lived space is defined as the space of those who use and inhabit it, as well as those who define it and those who believe they define it. So 3 different types of space. So we will be talking on how these different spaces are used in these 3 comparative research. I want to give a brief timeline on how the use of space changed in Turkish cinema. It differs from 1920s to these times. To have a short summary, around 1920s, the period of theaters, and here the space was not superficial. Then this transition period to 1939 to 1950s. In most of the films, this transition is seen, and problems with doubling and excessive use of music prevented the development of the use of space. Around 1980s and 60s, we see Yeşilçam period. In this period, we see the period of cinematographers and the golden period, and the 1980s and 70s, the crisis period in the world, and we see its application in the arabesque films and sex films. But to start with it, around 1980s, Kanun Namına, directed by the Lütfi Ömer Akad, the use of space in cinema began to free itself from the artificial sets and began to produce meaning about the class differences. Around 1980s, you know, all the theories based on the class change and how it's, we as a planner and urban specialist, we evaluate space based on the class differences, and its implication in the cinema is seen by focusing on these class differences and the places where the class differences are more. That's why Istanbul is emerging as an important case study to show these differences. And also the rural movies we see. Around 1980s, you know, all of the world is seeing the paradigm shift and local agents and grassroots becoming important. That's why in the films we see the individual's role in the film, and we see its application on women's film. And to shift to 1990s to Turkish cinema, we see we use Asuman Sunar's periodization. We see the other phase of Istanbul between 1990s and 2000s, the other industry. We see the role of agents, like we see in the actor network theory. The structure, the urban place is not defined by the structures, by the agents. So the agents are changing urban place. In the cinema, the agents are changing the way of look, the perspective in the cinema. You see here the beginning of the transition from the golden city of Istanbul to the dark Istanbul in the back streets of Beyoğlu. The breaking point starts with 1996, New Turkish cinema, the popular cinema, and the art cinema. And we see the production of space focusing on cinema of anti-nostalgia. In this period, it's accepted from the Eşkıya movie, Yavuz Turul's film. It builds a story through the basic contrasts of meaning of Yeşilçam. It brings together the star actors and directors who takes in the stylistic characteristics of Hollywood cinema and big budgets, and attention is paid to the use of space while creating the atmosphere of the movie. We see this change, I'm shifting this, and we see in the Turkish cinema the representation of Istanbul as a prison and urban boredom pointing to the sky with the with the movie on Tabut de Röveşata, the viewer is made to feel that Istanbul has turned into an open-air prison for Masons through the atmosphere it established. And in the movie C Block, the character Tülay lives in C Block, and one of the housing blocks built for the upper middle class on the outskirts of the city. And this movie presents the city in a way that reminds one of a prison with both its name and image. And for the selection of the cases, we apply the qualitative study and descriptive analysis. In addition to that, we use, for explaining the city, compositional analysis technique to evaluate the visual data obtained from the film. And to shift this, the population of the research consists of artistic independent wing of the new Turkish cinema, which experienced a break in the second half of 1990s by Asuman Tuner, and we get the most up-to-date data from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism data, and the universe is 688 films, and 102 is represented on our country, which takes success in the festivals, and among which 79 were taking place in Istanbul, and 29 of them both shot in Istanbul and successful in the film festivals were identified, and we reduced it to 13, no previous spatial analysis in the literature, and we took 3 of them, which takes an award and hasn't been studied yet. So we chose Abluka for this reason, Kaygı and Son Çıkış, based on this methodology. To start with, for the Abluka movie, directed by Emin Alper, the plot of Abluka can be summarized as Kadir's experiences after his parole at the time when Istanbul is in a big political chaos, and the police are increasing their measures day by day to catch people causing the chaos. So, for looking at the spatial analysis of the Abluka movie, you see the visual images. In the first image, a cold shade of gray-blue that evokes formality, domination, and panoptic perception of space as a result of surveillance and control. And we see here the Lefebvre's tried conceived space and the length plan. In the other images, for instance, in the visual image 4, a space of resistance, refugee, because it's the space where the power observes, controls, and doesn't yet intervene, but waits in readiness to do so. So it's a kind of lived space, an iconic plan. And in the third one, the fifth image, no smooth transition between any neighborhoods, districts, and dominated by high-rise buildings, the conceived space, the whole of the neighborhoods, slums as lived space. It's the general plan is applied in the movie. And for the images 9, 10, 11, I'm shifting it fast to keep in time. The representation of a city as a conceived space shaped by the dominant power, the representation of city as a space that surrounds and encloses by Ahmet's iconic plan. And we see here especially the visual image 20. Unlike the previous other representations, we see some warm colors like yellow and other colors. Ahmet's house is a space of resistance, refugee, whose reality is not questioned by the audience, and we see a lived space. To shift with the Kaygı movie, directed by Ceylan Özçelik, Kaygı can be summarized as Hasret, who edits documentaries in the media industry, facing both personal and social trauma as her memories of the past, and that is triggered by certain encounters of her daily life. We see here in the first vision yellow and earth tones representing the warmth and protection that lived space in the, as a refugee or a space resistance that protects Hasret from the outside. It's a length plan. And we see on the image 4, Tech TV she's working on, which represents the dominant power in the media by name, is shown on Hasret's computer screen as a constant reminder of itself. It's a kind of enclosing space, concept plan and waste plan. And we see in the visual image 6, the breath in the city and reminds something about the past, a space of resistance, memory that resists the dominant power through the act of remembering, lived space, base plan. And in the visual image 11, we see a space of resistance and memory as it recalls a melody from the past and directs to remember. It's a kind of lived space. I'm shifting it fast. By visual images 14, 15, and 16, the director's use of technique of one after the other at certain intervals, VUC, making the city spatially important in the movie, strengthening the perception of dystopian atmosphere of the urban space. It's a promotion plan. So I'm skipping the last movie because, to conclude, we see when we compare all these movies, the used visual images, and we see most of the images are based on conceived space, which are designed by the state or planners. The claustrophobic perception of the space formed by the character's experience of the space is strengthened as the professionalism of the created mise-en-scenes increases, and the pessimism that audience perceives or feels in the general atmosphere of the film rises in parallel. So the last point, these three films, which do not belong to the science fiction film center, have been described by different academic authors that these films are dystopian. This study, on the other hand, makes an original contribution to the literature by investigating the role of space in the dystopian atmosphere that has been created on the viewer, despite the real location shootings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The 8 minutes is left from you, so I made all the participants share it. I gave you 2 more minutes, and that means you have 17 minutes also. Now we will listen Gesufrancesco with his abstract. We should transfer the microphone to you.
Can you hear me? Does it work? Does it work? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, I will try to be loud. Welcome everyone. My research is about like the still islands as other space, Foucault's Heterotopias in Rose Islands. I get from the colleague that we are going to discuss about space, but in this case more like heterotopia space. So space serves as both a means of connection and differentiation. Does it work? Okay. No. Okay. Space serves as both means of connection and differentiation, shaping a relationship and system of thoughts. The very organization of space has a very ancient history that can be traced back to the first civilization. According to Michael Foucault, space as an experience, as a concept that fuels Western thought, has its own history. These locations are perfectly distinguishable and irreducible to each other. Thus, a fundamental heterogeneity runs through the space of modern life. Yet, it is necessary to notice that the space which today appears to form the horizon of our concept, our theory, our system, is not an innovation. And it is not possible to disregard the fatal intersection of time with space. In fact, space, together with time, have always been a fundamental concept in defining the energy that moves the human beings and his relationship with the world around him. And this happens above all in those spaces of possibility that are present in our cities and in our daily life. Today, despite all the methods of appropriating space and the vast body of knowledge that allow us to define or codify it, it is possible that modern space has not yet been completely desacralized. And our life is still governed by a certain number of oppositions that remains inviolable, that our institution and practice have not yet dared to break down. These are oppositions that we regard as simple givens, for example, between private space and public space, between family space, social space, between cultural space and useful space, between the space of leisure and that of work. All of these are still nurtured by the hidden presence of the sacred. It is above all thoughts the work of various philosophers that we have learned that we do not exist in an homogeneous and empty place, but that the space, especially internal, of our primary perception, the space of our dreams and our passion, hold within themselves qualities that seems intrinsic. Of all of them, Foucault, as you could see before, is one of who defines space as an environment in which we exist, which takes us to ourselves as an heterogeneous place in and of itself. It is the experience, symbolization of space that play a crucial role building bridge to otherness. Of course, one can try to explain this numerous sites by identifying the relation that can be used to define a particular place. And among these, Foucault himself questioned its properties, that is, in the sense of being, in relation with all the other sides, but in such a way as a suspect neutralize or invert the set of relations that they happen to designate, mirror, or reflect. This space, as it were, which are linked to, with all the others, which, however, contradict all the other sides, are of two main types. We have like utopia and heterotopia. In contrast to utopia, which are places without a physical location and are intrinsically unreal, heterotopia are real places present in every culture and civilization that are akin to counter-sites that exist within society, or rather represent utopias in which the real sites, all of the other real sites that can be found within the culture, are simultaneously represented, contested, and inverted. Such places exist and have their own geographical location in reality, but at the same time they exist outside of all places as they are entirely distinct from the places themselves and from the society they reflect and speak about. However, what is particularly interesting in this research is that basically we are going to just like see other spaces that are known as the heterotopia according to Foucault, who describe them as the real places, effective places that are written into the institution of society itself and that are sort of counter-emplacement, a sort of effectively realized utopia in which the real emplacement, all of the other real emplacement that can be bound in a culture are simultaneously represented, contested, and inverted. It is important in this regard to think of a space not as a container of society, but as a formative element of social practice. Imagining a different future means try to experience and conceptualize spatiality that might help create a different social relation. People not only receive space, but also think and image through it. Space not only gives form of existing social work, experienced and understood as a meaningful life condition, but also to possible social works that may inspire action and express collective dreams. In this regard, there have been times when utopian vision seemed the most appropriate way to illustrate a radical different future, and surely criticism of the present was their propelling force. Realism and pragmatism have always been extremely strong opponents of utopian thinking, and their power to convince people that experience reality is the only way possible is always argued by the ruling elite. So the case of study is this movie. It's an Italian movie that you can find on Netflix called Rose Island, and directed by Sidney Sibilia. It's based on a true story on the engineer Giorgio Rosa and his artificial platform that became a micronation, the Republic of Rose Island, in May 1968 and destroyed 1 year after in 1969. That's the real story. Just like in the reality, in the film, the engineer Giorgio Rosa built the Steel Island, an artificial platform in international water to create a space free from government jurisdiction, attracting residents and tourists. However, as his popularity grew, the Italian government perceives it as a threat, and leading to political pressure, personal sacrifice, and final destruction of the Steel Island. The aim of this research is to describe how a film such as Rose Island has in its plot direct and indirect reference to the philosophical thoughts of Foucault. In fact, the film narration, although slightly different from the true story of the Republic of Rose Island, tried to represent what Foucault stated during the radio conference of December 7, 1966. That is, that Heterotopia is a real place in which what is deviated from a certain social norm is materially moved and transferred, but also a limited space, both geographically and temporally, in which is allowed to deviate from the norm. It is through this social movement, just like in the film, that those transformations of the territories of the common into territories of resistance occur, a process that Stavros Stavridis, also known and analyzed in deep, in a perspective that places the tension for emancipation at the center of his reflection. So the question are basically, how can we define if a space is heterotopic? Can cinema use a real case and repropose it within its narrations? The question that the film tried to cover finds answer when the character begins to question the existence of another space, different from the Italian society in the 60s. In fact, Steel Island, built by the Italian engineer Giorgio Rosa, is another example of a space that can be read through heterotopology. Through the analysis of the film, it is possible to try to describe, elaborate, and clarify Foucault's discourse of the concept of other space presented to the audience by the film narration in order to deepen these transformative spaces and the way in which cinema represents them. After all, cinema itself, as the colleague said, it refers to a general concept of heterotopia, in that real place in which several spaces that normally should be incompatible are juxtaposed, and the philosopher himself defined it as a large, regular room at the end of which, on a screen that is two-dimensional space, a space that is again three-dimensional is projected. The first one is like heterotopias of crisis and heterotopias of deviation. Foucault identified heterotopias as universal across culture, although they form vary greatly. He classified them in two types: heterotopia of crisis, space reserved for individual instead of social or personal upheaval, and heterotopias of deviation, which accommodate those whose behavior deviates from the social norm. While heterotopias of crisis are becoming rarer in contemporary society, remains persists often replaced by heterotopias of deviation. In the film, we have Franca represent a heterotopia of crisis, a pregnant teenager facing social rejection. She seeks refuge on the Steel Island, described as a mythical. Her choice reflects the island's role as another place, detached from the familiar social norms. In contrast to the character, there is Pietro and Newman, these last two characters. Pietro is a castaway and Newman is a deserter, represent individuals whose action deviate from a social norm. Their integration into the Steel Island reinforces its role as a space for excluded people. The other one, going through like other heterotopias, the next one is going to be heterotopias of emplacement and displacement. Foucault's second principle emphasized that heterotopias are shaped by geographically and history, adapting their function according to cultural temporal context. A single heterotopia can serve very different purposes and have function or another depending on the society and the area in which it exists. Here we have three examples you can see. The still island resembling an oil ring exemplify this principle by redefining the concept of an island that undergoes on a major case is that one. Not as a natural formation, but as a constructed and autonomous space. Its geographical location connects to Rimini, Italy, a neighborhood state, but its relocation to international water marks its departure from traditional territory control. The emergence of the island in 1968, at the time of a great revolution, underlines its symbolic function. During this period, the freedom and independence from state authority became battle cries, and the still island embodies these ideas by redefining its status with the proclamation of the new still island. So before we have the island, and then they declare it as a state. The transformation of the still island reflects the changing of social value in its time. Traditionally, islands were geographically and politically linked to neighborhood states, but the construction of a still island challenged this convention. Its physical composition and its symbolic displacement into international water redefined it as another space, a heterotopia of autonomy and possibility. The adoption of Esperanto as an official language symbolized the proclamation of the Insula de la Roche. The next heterotopia principle that Foucault says is the power of heterotopia to juxtapose different incompatible space within a single real place. As seen in examples such as theater, cinema, and garden, he describes heterotopia as a space that can bring together otherwise contradictory sides, creation of a microcosm of the world. For example, the garden as a smaller particle of the world also symbolize the totality of the world. The still island exemplified, the next one, the still island, okay. The still island exemplifies this principle through its spatial and functional organization. You can see in the photo, there is a central plaza served as a focal point, and then there are different areas around, like a cafe, restroom, room, office, post office. But even in addition, they want to add like a bank and a hotel room. The other heterotopia is the heterotopia of time. Foucault, fourth principle, explored the interaction between heterotopias and heterochronies, where place and time overlap in unique ways. As Foucault argued, heterotopias are most often linked to slice in time, which is to say that they are open onto that might be termed, for the sake of symmetry, heterochronies. The heterotopia begins to function at full capacity when the man arrives as a sort of absolutely break of their traditional time. We can see, for example, in this case, that the still island is basically just useful for summer. The other heterotopia is the opening and closing. Foucault, fifth principle, explored the dual nature of heterotopia constituted by a system of opening and closing as isolated and penetrable spaces. These spaces are not firmly accessible like public space. Instead, the entry often requires specific permission, rituals, or symbolic gesture, creating a threshold experience. In this case, we have, for example, this one. You can just reach the Rose Island by boat. You cannot go. So it's like isolated somehow. But at the same time, you have a ritual. So people just drink. Actually, they say that there is a ritual. It's like people drink wine with the fruits, and then they eat the fruits. The last heterotopia is the illusion of illusion and compensation. The sixth principle highlights the dual function of heterotopias in relation to external space as a space of illusion, exposing real space as even more illusory. Perhaps this is the role played by those famous brothels that we know deprived of, and a space of compensation, creating meticulously ordered alternative to disorganized real space. The last thing, basically, is like in the island, everyone could do whatever they want, and this is one of the characteristics of the island that make this illusion of happy life. And do I have time? I don't have to, I can finish. So, Basically, all of these heterotopia related together, they show that Rose Island is really another space because it's all related, connected with all these principles that heterotopia should have. Thank you for listening.
And for
Relation,
the
my
last
friend.
presentation,
This is not necessarily.
we will listen Ersin Berk,
This is.
has an abstract about philosophy
Okay.
and photography to a film of Bela Tarr.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Yes. Burası kalabilir şimdi. Ondan sonra. Aha, tamam olur. Şöyle yapalım. Şunu o tarafa.
Hocam bunu alırsanız iyi olur.
Buraya koyalım.
Kaydı için sizin sesiniz önemli.
Ama zaten çalışmıyor.
Kameraya bağlı değil diye biliyorum ama
Yok salon
alıyor mu? Tamam.
İyi. Peki. Tamam. Şöyle yapalım o zaman. Peki. Okay, tamam. Hello. Hello again. Hi everyone. Firstly, thank you all participation. I realize we don't have much time, and so I will try to summarize briefly. I want to start my presentation by reading a part of from my paper, and after that, I'd like to finish my work by presenting some images from a movie, The Turin Horse. This study aims to conduct a photographic analysis of Bela Tarr's Turin Horse and establish philosophical context by situating technically analyzed frames with broader conceptual frameworks. The overcharging objective is to eliminate the formal and conceptual power of the Turin Horse, one of Tarr's most critically acclaimed works. Bela Tarr is widely recognized as an author whose cinematic vision transcends the scope of any single film. In a 2008 interview, Tarr articulated the thematic essence of his aura, emphasizing his commitment to exploring human dignity. I have to tell you, I'm doing the same movie about human dignity. Please don't destroy it. Please don't humiliate it. For Tarr, human dignity exists beyond the confines of class, geography, or sociocultural conditions. It is inviolable. He further elaborates on core of his cinematic philosophy. In my films, there are some poor, ugly, and sad people. Maybe they are capable of committing crimes, but they also capable of loving each other. They are human beings, and they have a right to live. The quality of their life, it doesn't matter. These statements underscore a strong anthropocentric sensibility in Tarr's work, wherein he foregrounds inherent worth of human existence, irrespectively of his external circumstances. Despite his anthropocentric stance, Tarr expressed in same interview a notable shift in perspective. When I think of what we have done this world, I must say that I respect animals more than people. This statement reveals Tarr's growing disillusionment with humanity's impact on the world, suggesting an ethical revelation that extends beyond human-centric concerns. 3 years later, in Turin Horse, Tarr sought to honor this respect for animals, positioning them as central figures in his narrative. During his visit to Turkey in 2011, Bela Tarr stated in an interview that the story, The Turin Horse, dates back 1985. Tarr was profoundly influenced by a question posed in theatrical work Laszlo Krasznahorkai, the writer who inspired many of films. We know the story of Nietzsche embracing the whipped horse, but we don't know the story of horse. This question had a lasting impact on Tarr 26 years, eventually leading him to create the Turin Horse as a response. The Turin Horse addresses not only the story of horse, but also the story of human who killed God. In a 2017 interview, Tarr clearly described his film as an anti-creation film. You know, God created the world in 6 days. First, he separated darkness from light, then the earth, the sky, and so on. and after 6 days, he thought, okay, cool. He just lay on his back, and the 7th day is day of the rest. But as we now look at the world, we are compelled to agree with Nietzsche's in that God is dead. So we need to take it all back. And we took it all back in this movie. After this film, Tarr ended his career as a filmmaker, arguing that continuing to make films would only lead a reputation. Now, I'm trying to support this anti-creation philosophical context with some photographic analysis. Yes, you see now day 1 in this film. The film Turin Horse is 2 hours and 32 minutes long and consists of 6 parts, maybe metaphorically 6 days. The days primarily unfolding between the horse, the father, and the daughter grow progressively shorter and increasingly arduous with each passing moment. A closer analysis of films reveals Tarr's deliberate emphasis on the hardships that constitute the thematic foundation of his narrative. The frames you see are selected from shots the Turin Horse last longer than 5 seconds. Notably, Tarr frequently employs closed composition in these frames. Additionally, it is observed that often place figures at the centers of the frame, diverging from the rules of thirds. You can see on the first day, the storm begins to manifest itself. The father noticed that the bedbugs whose sounds he has heard for years have fallen silent. On the second day, yes, we can see. On the second day, despite the being whipped, the horse refused to move and stops eating. A neighbor visits and claims that everything filthy, but the father dismisses this assertion as a nonsense. You can see the frames. And then day 3, the third day, a group of gypsies arrives the house. They drink water from the well and in exchange give the daughter a holy book. You can see, 1 minute. I can see the mouse, yes. 3 please. Üçüncüye gelir misiniz tekrar? Yes, this is the holy book and the holy book again. But unfortunately, on the 4th day, the well runs dry and the lights start to fade. The father and daughter, on the 4th day, the wells run dry and the runs dry and lights start to fade. The father and daughter attempt to leave their home, but unable to do so due to the intensifying storm. Yes, you can see again. Yes, this and this. And then on the 5th day, the house runs off drinkable water. The horse stopped feeding and it becomes completely unresponsive. The storm grows more severe, and despite there being fuel, the lights continue to go out. Yes. The 6th day begins with a black screen. The father and daughter face each other as complete darkness envelopes their surroundings. The daughter stops eating and drinking as well. The father says, "You have to eat," and takes a bite from a raw potato. The scan ends with absolute darkness. And finally, in 2023 interview with Nico Bernard, Bela Tarr was asked, "Are you hopeful about the new generation?" And Tarr replied, "Of course," and added, "There is a saying in Hungary, hope die last." This word not only evoked the closing scene of the Turin Horse, but also illuminate the philosophical framework underlying Tarr's aura. Thank you. Yes. Maybe is there any question?
You were very good timing.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any questions? Please.
I do have one question for Azranur. Thank you for your presentation, first of all. Since nowadays I am studying in a very similar topic for my MA thesis actually, your presentation actually enlightened me more, and my question will be about that. So you talked about the agency of nature, agency of elements, snow, etc. But what I was studying just yesterday was about this. So since the beginning of time, elements as such, natural elements better to say, or animals, were used in didactic children's stories, such as fables or any didactic type of media. But in some cases, this is, or actually this is my opinion, it is somehow degrading of nature. You know, using nature, such a grandeur element, to just teach these little children, in quotation marks, of course I'm joking, it's such an important job, and you just presented it to us, is seen as degrading nature. So what do you think about it? Does such usage elevate nature, or does it degrade nature into an object of didactic material? If we could tell it correctly.
Thank you for your valuable question. Actually, there is no consensus related with that, the anthropomorphic approach in the animated movies or the cartoons for this, the showing up the nature or any kind of thing that represent the understanding, the creating empathy towards it. So I think it is related with how you perceive in the study of that movie or cartoon. So we have some examples that are degrading nature in animated movies, but in a way, the last decades, Disney's movies creates an empathy towards the ecological crisis. So we are in the midst of the ecological crisis, and it creates this awareness through it. But when we have a look at the early 2000 movies, we have seen some kind of degrading approach or the representations. So I think we do not have any proper answer for it.
I understand. So it can be debated.
Yeah.
It's not sort of like a better mind thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. I guess we're end of the session. Thank you all for your contribution and your valuable presentations, and thank you to the audiences. And we're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teşekkürler.